Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to How Do They Do That Live. It is our first one of the year, and today we're learning about classroom management tips. We're going to learn about some actual tips and also about some EdTech tools that can help you with classroom management. This is a live event today, so you might notice you don't have access to your camera or microphone at all. However, up at the top there is a live event Q&A. You can put any questions in that, and me and the team that's helping me do this event will keep an eye on those questions, and we will post answers to them as they come in. And we will have a survey at the end for attendance, so you do need to stick around for the entire webinar to make sure you get a chance to fill out that survey. Just a quick glance at who is bringing this presentation to you. This is your EdTech team. Matthew Ketchum is our director. Myself and Angela are your two trainers. We have Bree Podesta is our EdTech coach, Brandon Chisholm as our digital curriculum coordinator, and Armando Arviso as our instructional technology technician. And all together, we are your EdTech team. So any EdTech questions you have, we are happy to help you. You're always welcome to reach out to us via email, or if you put in help desk tickets, we also take a look at those. One other piece of housekeeping step before we get started here is, again, I want to reiterate at the end of the webinar today, I'm going to send you guys a survey. The survey, well, actually, I'll send you two surveys. One survey will be about the PD itself and any feedback that you can offer us on that. And the second ones will be your attendance. So you just need to make sure to fill both of those out, but stay tuned. Those will be published at the end of the webinar today. We have a jam-packed hour ahead of us. So this is the content that we're going to go over today. First, we have Amber Barnwell. She is a behavioral coach, and she will be presenting classroom management tips for a variety of grade levels. Then we will hear from Bree Podesta, our brand new PK12, EdTech coach. She'll talk about a tool called Classroom Screen. And then Bree will also be talking about some tips and tricks in Blocksy to do some class management. And then we will round out the hour with Lockdown Browser, and Bonilla will talk about Lockdown Browser in Performance Matters, and then I will round us out with Lockdown Browser in Schoology. So a lot of great content today. As you can see, we're kind of pretty evenly split between actual classroom management tips and some of the tools that you could use to make that easier. But I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to go into all the content, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and introduce Amber Barnwell. So Amber is talking about classroom management tips. And Amber, whenever you're ready, feel free to come off mute and share your screen.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. There we go. Can you guys all see that?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay. Oopsie. So I'm gonna, actually I wanna go back because I would love to share this QR code for a classroom management Padlet that I've created, and I've added to this Padlet every training I've done. So teachers add information on this Padlet, administrators, other coaches, things that may be useful in the classroom, TK all the way up to 12. And we also have the social emotional learning Padlet. This has information for SEL learning, different things that you could use digitally, but also visuals and different resources that you could connect to as a teacher. All right, so I have a couple tips for you guys today. The main one I get asked about a lot is power struggles. This is something we see in preschool all the way up to high school. So here are some tips I have for avoiding power struggles, because the best way to deal with them in the classroom is to avoid them altogether. So if you do say no to something, remember it is a complete sentence. You don't have to go back and argue why you're saying no. Sometimes no is just no. It's easier sometimes in classrooms to provide a choice if you have a student that you know is going to be refusing a task or just trying to get out of work. Providing a choice is helpful. Sometimes you might say, you know what, you could do problems 1 through 5 right now, and then 5 through 10 later, or you could do the front first, then the back. Sometimes with students that have ADHD, things that have a lot of words on them, worksheets, paper, problems that you may give a student for independent practice, it's overwhelming. Sometimes I like to fold it in half and just tell them, do the first half right now and do the second half when you're finished. Another way that you could avoid power struggles is first then statements. First, I need you to go to your seat, then I'll talk to you. First, I need you to write your name on your paper, then we'll work on number 1 together. This is a great way to just avoid a power struggle in general in the classroom. But one of the ones that I use when I get in a situation where the behavior is escalating, especially with younger students. This could be applied to older students as well, but distract and reset. So with those young ones, and I know I've been in a lot of those TK kinder classrooms this school year already, sometimes they dig their heels in and they do not want to follow directions, or they don't want to move forward. You could offer them the world at that moment and they're just kind of set. So distract and reset is a great strategy that I use a lot. Sometimes I wait for an opening with the student when I see that they're getting ready to go into meltdown or tantrum or just refusing the task altogether. I might use something like a common interest to kind of open that door in that conversation. It could be something like, oh, I see that you're wearing Converse. Yeah, I have a pair of those too. I have like 4 colors, something that you could just start a conversation with. With little ones, of course, you could look at what they're wearing. Sometimes I'll check out their t-shirt or their shoes. And, if they're wearing Paw Patrol or something, I'll say, oh, is that Paw Patrol? Now, don't get upset or feel like, ooh, I failed at this if they don't respond to you right away, because a lot of kids might not say anything to you when you try to distract and reset. The point of it is to kind of open the door for them to chat with you at some point. This has happened to me a lot. I've started a conversation with a kid, walked off, continued teaching, and they ignored me. Eventually, they came around and they would say something like, yes, Miss Barnwell, I do like Paw Patrol. Do you like Paw Patrol? Once that door is open, then I start talking with them, making sure they're de-escalated. And then when I see the opportunity, I circle back to the request that was given in the first place. And I usually make it pretty simple, like, once I need you to go sit in your seat for me, and then we'll finish this conversation. Or I need you to go sit in your seat and then let's walk to lunch. So distract and reset is a really good strategy when you're dealing with behaviors that may escalate. Setting clear limits. This is huge. If you have clear limits in the classroom, you have your visuals up, you've taught your procedures and your routines, typically the amount of behaviors you're going to see is definitely going to be less, because you could use other strategies. You could fall back on pointing to your visuals so you can avoid arguing with the student. You could fall back on, remember rule number 3. All of these limits that teachers set in their classroom are ways to fall back on these strategies when behaviors occur. I do have a couple examples of clearly stating specific boundaries in the classroom. A non-example would be something like, if you don't finish your work, you won't have free time. First of all, I wouldn't suggest saying something like this for a couple reasons. What if they finish their work and then the class is over and you can't follow through with the free time that you offered? And usually when you start with a negative like this, if you don't finish your work, then you won't have whatever. Usually it just shuts kids down again. Something that you could change this to is, after your work is done, you'll have 5 minutes of free time. Get started. And also a lot of teachers, when you are setting a limit or talking to a student, you're really using that proximity control, walking over to them. One of the things I try to avoid though is staying in that area with them too long. So if you do give them, you set a specific limit or a boundary, don't wait for them to comply standing next to their desk or in front of them, because sometimes this opens the door for argumentative behavior or escalates the behavior. So set the limit, continue teaching, come back and check in to see if they followed your direction. These are just some tips that I see all the time. Teachers use these, and I don't think that they realize how much they use these types of behavior management in the classroom. These types are really, we fall back on the least invasive form of intervention. For example, if I want to correct a student and I'm teaching whole class, most of the time I'm going to do an anonymous individual correction. I might say something like, I need everybody sitting up straight with their pencils out, or I need everybody to put their pencils away if I hear someone tapping or it's becoming disruptive with the noise making because students are playing with their materials. I would fall back on that anonymous individual correction. I also might use a quick public correction. We see this a lot where a teacher might say, Jeffrey, I need you to put your book away. Quick public correction, continue teaching. That private individual correction, that's when I've already used the anonymous, the quick public, and the student is still disrupting my lesson. I will walk over to him, I will lean in and say, I need you to put that away, or we might have to chat later. Positive group corrections, nonverbal intervention. A nonverbal intervention might be if you look at a group of students or a student and say, point to whatever visual you have up for your classroom management system. A positive group correction might be something like, look at group number 2, they're on task, thank you, 10 points if you have a point system in place. All right, repetition is key. Any behavior strategy that you're using in the classroom and that you find that is working, repeat, repeat, repeat. But when it comes to a student unlearning a behavior and learning a new behavior, there's a lot of research on repetition. For a student to learn something new, we have to repeat it on average 8 times. That's not including students with ADHD, students that might have some type of cognitive delays. Sometimes speech students need a little more repetition, but on average 8 times. For a student to unlearn an old behavior, you have to repeat it, the new behavior, on average 28 times. So 20 of the times to eliminate the old behavior and 8 of the times so that they could learn the new behavior that you're teaching. A behavior that I see a lot with repetition, this type of strategy working, is that blurting behavior. If you have a student blurting in your class and say that you are trying to ignore the blurt, but keep your students, your whole class on track by restating what they need to be doing, but not giving any attention to the student that's blurting. Say that the blurting might be attention. The function of the behavior might be attention. So you do this 20 times and you see that the blurting is decreasing. It's still there because blurting is difficult, but it's decreasing. And then one time, it only takes one time for this student to catch you and say something like, Miss Barnwell, do we have 5 minutes until lunch? And if you answer them and say yes, then you have to start back at the beginning at 28 times because you reinforced the blurt right then. So blurting is one I see a lot of teachers trying to use a strategy to unlearn the blurting behavior. And then they're trying to teach the new behavior, which would be to raise their hand or to show them a signal. But it just takes that one time, and then you have to start that repetition loop all over again. Okay, I think the last thing I have to share is the difference between discipline and management. Discipline is reactive, management is proactive. But the thing on this list that I like to really share out from this slide is that discipline stops defiant behavior sometimes, and management is there to promote that predictable behavior or produce predictable behavior, promote responsibility. And I'm not saying that discipline isn't something that is needed, because it is. Stop requests work. If I am teaching at the front of the room and a student is tapping and I say stop tapping, they're going to probably stop tapping for a moment. But what we see is that stop request doesn't last as long as I want. But that management piece, me teaching them what I want them to do, produces more predictable behavior. So a management piece with a student that might tap their pencil or pen all the time would be, when Miss Barnwell is teaching, all your materials need to be in your desk. That would be a piece of management, and that would produce predictable behavior. That's the most important thing, I believe, between discipline and management. And discipline is more reactive and management is more proactive. Okay. I think those are the tips that I have today.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing those, Amber. There was a
You're
question that
welcome.
came in about the
Okay.
links. Will you be able to send me a copy of that slide deck that you shared, and I can
Yes.
send it out to everybody?
Yes, I will.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you, Amber. She is going to share that content with us. So I'll make sure to get that out to you guys. Up next, we have Bree Podesta. First up, Bree is going to be showing us classroom screen. So Bree, whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen and your video if you'd like to.
Hi, everyone. Like Alexandra mentioned before, I'm the ed tech coach. I've been hitting all the elementaries that I can so far. So if you haven't seen me yet and you're in the TK6 realm, hopefully you'll see me soon. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to talk about how to access classroom screen. So as a former teacher, I was always Googling timers or going on YouTube for different timers or wheeling for names or randomizers and things like that. The EdTech team, before I got here, they were awesome and created this EdTech tools folder. In that folder, in your app portal, you can click classroom screen, and this classroom screen will pop up just like this. Every time you open up the classroom screen app, it'll have a different background, but you get the autonomy to choose which background you want. On the bottom, there are widgets. There are, let's see, let's start with background. You get to choose which backgrounds you would like. I kind of used this when I was in the classroom as kind of like an icebreaker or talking piece in the morning, especially after coming back from the weekends. You know, some students have unfortunate events happening on the weekends. So this was the kind of a way to bring them back in and make them feel comfortable again in the classroom. That's one way you can use it. I'm going to start off with the basics. This is awesome, especially for littles in TK. Highly recommend this. This widget is called the sound level widget. And it does exactly that, monitors the noise in the classroom. It's going to be your best friend, the best thing ever. So you get to monitor how loud you want the class to get. Or if it's supposed to be independent time, you can adjust it to minimal noise. It all depends on how close they are to your microphone in the classroom on your laptop. So that's there for you. There is also a timer for my fluency, my upper grades that are doing fluency. I taught 3rd grade, so this was very essential for me. I practiced, you need to read this past fluency passage in a minute. So in the mornings, I would bring this up. I would set it for a minute and I would play it. And every time the minute goes off, it'll ding and their partner knows that they're up. They're ready for the next turn. Let's see. There is also a stoplight. You get to use a stoplight for whatever classroom management system you would like in the classroom. If you click the light, it brightens up. Same thing for yellow, and same thing for red. And any widget, if you click the 3 dots, you are able to spotlight that specific widget. So you could potentially structure your classroom screen every morning and then have everything ready to go and displayed and spotlighted it whenever you feel deemed that it's necessary for that particular widget. There are also work symbols. Let's say you want them to work independently quietly. You would do that symbol. If you want them to whisper, there's that symbol. You can ask a neighbor, maybe they're discussing a question with their elbow partner, shoulder partner, or maybe you're doing a group discussion and they're discussing. That's also available to you. You also have the option to turn off that sound. Some may want that sound, some may not. The whooshing sound, it sounds pretty cool. You can enable it or disable it. It's up to you. So that's another feature of this classroom screen. There is also a randomizer. So if you have, instead of pulling popsicle sticks, if you want to change it up a little bit, you can add a list. If you click randomizer and you click the settings wheel, you get to copy and you can copy and paste a list, or you can save a list in your account. I have my test list already created. I'm going to click test and I'm going to click the randomizer button. And it picked Brandon. Brandon's the lucky winner. So that's one way you can use the randomizer. There's also this cool feature, polling. Now you can spotlight it. You can use this as maybe like a check for understanding tool at the end of a lesson. You can use it for a SEL check-in in the morning. Hey, how are you feeling today? There's multiple choice. There's smiley faces. What did you think of today's lesson? Students can log in. You can publish that link in Schoology possibly, or you could push it out in the morning through Blocksy sharing feature, and I'll talk about that in a moment after Classroom Screen. All they would do is input this code and they would be able to answer any poll question that you put on this screen. You can also add any images you would like to your screen. You can draw. You could possibly use this for if you're doing BTBF with SWON Math. If 7 times 3 equals 21, then 3 times 7 equals 21. So you could kind of model it that way also, but you can use it to your heart's desire, however way you want it. There's also a QR code creator. You copy and paste a URL. So I'm going to copy and paste Modesto City Schools. I'm going to paste it. And then it generates the QR code for that website. That's also available to you on there. There's also a regular clock. So if you're a 3rd grade teacher and you're practicing telling time, maybe that's another way for students to practice, maybe randomly call. Hey, what time is it? How many minutes is it? How many seconds have went by? How many minutes went by? Things like that. There's also more widgets. There's a dice feature. If you click the dice and you roll it, it'll make the rolling dice sound and then the number will pop up. Maybe this what you can use it for if you have if your classroom management system includes groups, maybe that's the group that's being chosen to share out. There's also a group maker. So same concept as the student randomizer, but you can add any list of students you want. I'm going to use my test list for sake of time. I'm going to add my test list, and then I'm going to create groups. And now my list of students are divided, well, hopefully equally. But let's say if you want them in 2 groups, you get to decide how many groups you want, you shuffle, and it puts them in the desired number of groups that you want. And then we have a stopwatch. It stops. You can start to stop it whenever you want. And then you can also embed a YouTube video. Any videos that you would like, you can embed it in there as well. There's also a visual timer in there. You can adjust it maybe 1 minute, just another visual for the kids to see 20 minutes. This is what I was mentioning before. If this was my setup for the morning and I wanted to show this QR code, I can click the QR code, the 3 dots, and spotlight it. So that way, that's the only thing that's showing on the screen. So I'm ready to go. And I think that's it for class screen. You do have the option, since it's a free app, you do have the option of saving 3 lists to your workspace, but you do not have access to saving your class screens. So just a little FYI for that. And that is classroom screen in a nutshell.
Hey, Bree, there was a question, and I think you just answered it. Do you have to set this up every day, or can you save it?
Unfortunately, the free version, you cannot save the screens, but I believe if you upgrade, so I'm going to click Discover Pro, it allows you to save your backgrounds and your screen workspaces, things like that.
And I'm going to share my screen again, but I think we're back to you in just a moment, Bree. But I do want to share with you guys that in the slide deck here, there is a video also. So again, we are going to send this out. There is a link in the Q&A, but we're also going to send this out to you guys. But there's a video on how to use Classroom Screen. But our next topic up is also with Bree, and we're going to learn a little bit about Blocksy. So Bree, whenever you're ready, I don't know if you have a screen that you want to share or how you want to do this.
You could just share the slides. Everything is on there.
Okay, perfect. Just let me know when to go to the next slide.
I'm ready. Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, so share screen feature is a feature that when I was piloting it in my 3rd grade classroom that I found that was best engaging for my class and my students. So basically, let's say if I wanted to share my .cram screen with my class so that they can see it better, or maybe I had a student who had an accommodation on their IEP that they have maybe like a visual impairment or maybe a hearing impairment or something to that effect. This is one way you can do that. Alexandra, if you keep clicking, arrows will pop up with numbers. So the first step, how to share your screen, is you're going to start your session, and then on top, you'll see the share screen feature. Just a reminder, if you're already taking Blocksy courses, these top buttons are for the whole class. So if you click that share screen button, a pop-up will pop up, a pop-up screen will pop up, sorry. And you will have the autonomy to allow your microphone, to which students would be able to hear you more in depth, more closely if they plug in their headphones to their laptops. Or if you just want to disable that and you don't want to hear everyone's microphones going off with you echoing in the background, you can always press cancel and that disables that feature. Once you decide if you want your microphone on or off, you get to decide what screen you want to share. So Alexandra, if you click, the number 2 will pop up and then 3 different arrows. So you can share your entire screen like what I'm doing now. You have the autonomy to share a certain window or a Chrome tab in the Chrome browser. Once you decide which screen you would like to share, you click that specific screen. And then don't forget to check the box. If you're sharing a video, you can click the share system audio button. If not, then you could just leave it unchecked. It's up to you. Just remember, because I had that happen to a lot of students. And then you would click share. And then next slide. So I have a couple examples of when I was out and about in the classroom the past couple weeks. So this first classroom is a first grade classroom, and I was supporting this teacher, help coach her. We were working on it together, how to share her screen with her students so that she was able to have them doing something constructive while she was DIBELS testing and progress monitoring her class. So she decided that she wanted to share her screen with some Discovery Science videos and some lessons in there. So she shared the screen out, and that's what you see in that picture. And so she was able to, on her laptop device, progress monitor during that time, and the kids were able to hear the video and kind of talk amongst themselves quietly about the video, discuss it. So that was one idea, how to use share screen. Alexandra, click to the next photo. Yes, thank you. So here is another classroom. This is a 6th grade classroom. She decided students also wanted to see the screen better, especially writing the objective of the day first one. She shared her screen out to the class, and they were able to follow along with her dot cam. So those are just 2 examples of how you can implement it in the classroom. No one's too young to use it. As you see, there's 1st graders using it. No one's too old to use it, 6th graders. It's all about practicing with it, and give yourself a little grace if things don't work out and you're working out the kinks. But that's a feature I recommend using this year if you feel comfortable with that. And then next slide. Now we have our share and enforce pages. So if you recall at the top, they have features in the class session. It's called share and enforce, and it's the lightning bolt icon. When you click the lightning bolt icon in the top screen, you have the autonomy to share a URL or enforce a URL. They essentially do the same thing, but one's a little different. Enforce locks them into that specific URL, whereas when you just share the URL, they have the autonomy to open up more tabs. So enforce locks them into that tab you push out to them. Sharing the URL allows them to access everything else still like normal. A way that you can use this is maybe in classroom screen. You wanted to do a poll of the day. Maybe you want to do a morning check-in. Maybe you want to do a check for understanding at the end of a lesson, or just how their day went. You can share that link from classroom screen that it provides for you and push it out to the kids so that they don't have to maybe go back to Schoology if you don't want them to. Maybe it's just something quick you want them to do. You can share it so that they complete it that way, or if you want them to finish it, that you don't want them to skip around, you can enforce that URL as well. That's another tip that you can use it for. Sharing screen, I wanted to go back to that tip. I forgot to mention that, just like Amber mentioned about the power struggle with students in the classroom, I know some students like to share out all the time, no matter if assignments are completed or not. So maybe this is a strategy that you can use that maybe kind of minimizes that power struggle. So on the tile in the blocks, in the individual Blocksy screen, you'll see underneath the student's name, you have the option, the share screen icon too. That is for the students to share their screen with the entire class. So let's say you have that scholar who's just so eager, super eager to share out how they got to the answer, or their strategy that they used to come to the answer. Maybe you can say, hey, how about let's give everyone an opportunity to complete that task or those problems, and then at the end of the lesson, or maybe 10 minutes before the bell, I'll let you share your screen with the class, and then you can talk about what you did or what strategy you used. So that's another way to kind of tie it into Blocksy with what Amber said as well. And I think that's my spiel for Blocksy tips.
And then there is another question of, is there a way to set the session for the full day? I've been restarting my sessions. I believe that's related to Blocksy, because that came after the Blocksy training. So there is a way to set your sessions for the full day. You just have to change the duration of your class. So let me go ahead and take just a moment here to share my screen, and I can show you what that looks like before we go into our next presenter. So give me just a moment here. So I'm going to get into my Block C super quickly. And with a Block C class, there is a default duration. So your guys' default duration is determined by your grade level, but you can edit that. So if I go into one of my classes here, like period 2, for example, I can click this edit button and change the duration. So if I wanted this to last all day long, that might be, 5 or 6 hours. So maybe I would do, let's see, 360 minutes would be our 6 hours, and click save. And then once you start that, that should run all day long. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, continuing right along here, up next we have Ann Bonilla with us, and we're kind of moving into something called Lockdown Browser now. And Lockdown Browser, we'll learn a little bit more about it, but it's available in 2 different places. It's available in Performance Matters, and it's available in Schoology. So Ann, whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen and talk about Lockdown.
Okay, so for the Lockdown Browser in Performance Matters, let me share my screen. When you are setting up a test, or if you're working with a test that is created by the district, one of the district benchmarks, you may notice that a student may end up with a being locked out. And if the student's locked out, it's mainly because the test has been set up to be secure so that they can't navigate to another screen and look up the answers. How do we do that? So when you're making your own test, you can go to the Administration tab here, and you open this Online Assessment, OLA, block of different settings, and the setting you would enable is Enable Secure Test Lockout. Once you check that, then if a student navigates away from the assessment, they automatically are locked out of the test. How do we fix that? So a lot of teachers think that they have to fix that by sending in a help desk ticket, but in fact, you can actually fix that on your own using the OLA student status, which is available by clicking on the tests button in the menu. And when you click on that button, you can access the OLA student status and change status. So I'm going to show you a quick video. Ooh, let me stop sharing for a second because I don't think I enabled my audio. Let's quickly share with the audio. And we'll take a look at this video very quickly. It's a 2-minute video, but it walks you through how to do this.
In this tutorial, you will learn how to use OLA Student Status to manage the online testing process for students. First, go to the Test menu and select OLA Student Status. Then choose a test from the drop-down menu. At the top of the screen, select the assessment you wish to monitor. Next will appear various filters that can be applied to narrow down the students you wish to monitor. A teacher accessing OLA Student Status will only be able to apply filters related to students they teach. Selecting the Live Updates option enables you to view the progress of students currently taking the assessment. Once you have selected the appropriate filters, click Apply Filters. The status summary icons that appear above the list of students serve as an overall summary of the testing status. Unassigned displays the selected students who have not yet had the test released to them for administration. Assigned indicates that someone has either released the test for online testing or downloaded the scan sheet for those students. In Progress displays the selected students who are currently taking the test or students who have paused their test. Clicking on the Lock status will show all students who clicked away from their testing browser window when Secure Test Lockout was enabled. Submitted displays the selected students who have completed the test and click the Submit button. Finally, after an update occurs, Students who have submitted their tests will change in status from submitted to finished, making their test results available in all reports. The status summary icons can be used to filter the list of students below. Selecting any of these icons allows you to view the desired student population. When finished, click the button again to return to the full list of students. To unassign a student from a test, simply select the student and choose Move to Unassigned from the action menu to unrelease their test. Likewise, if a student exits the test in error, you can move their test back to In Progress. Select the student and choose Move Finished to In Progress from the action menu. Once a student is moved to In Progress, they can refresh their browser window and resume the test.
And that short video is actually available on the shared videos that are available when you look in the news and announcements on Performance Matters. And I can demonstrate that for you very quickly, how to get to those videos if you've got any questions about Performance Matters. So in Performance Matters, you can click on this News and Assignments button, and it'll show you a list of all the different videos that are available. Again, to get to the OLA student status, you click on Tests and just click on OLA student status. And from there, you can filter for your students. The students are assigned a test once they click on them in Schoology. Once they launch the test in Schoology, it's assigned to them. And that's it for me. I'll turn it back over to Alexandra.
Perfect. Thank you, Anne. That was fantastic and hopefully a helpful resource to you guys, especially, that idea of students being locked out. That's not super helpful. So it's great that you can just do that on your own. I'm going to go ahead and reshare my screen and get my camera on for you guys so you can see who's talking to you. Okay, perfect. So in the last few minutes that I have, you guys, it's 4:30, so we got about 15 minutes more together. So we're going to go ahead and go over Lockdown Browser in Schoology next, and that will be our final presentation for the day. And you guys get to hear from me about this. So let's learn a little bit about what the heck Lockdown Browser is. So very similar to what it is in Performance Matters, Lockdown Browser in Schoology is a custom browser that locks down the testing environment. So we'll see a little bit of an example in this in a couple of slides, but basically it says that students cannot go anywhere but the tests that you've assigned them within Schoology. So a couple ways of how it works here. So basically its name says it all. It locks down the browser on a computer or on a tablet. It works on Chromebooks just fine. Assessments are displayed full screen, so they can't be minimized. Students can't exit out of them. They can't alt tab to another screen. They're just seeing the assessment. The browser menu, the toolbar options are removed, except for just a couple things, like they can refresh the page, they can exit out of the browser if they need to, but they may or may not be able to get back into it depending on your settings. They can't access other applications, including the calculator, messaging, screen sharing, other things like that. They also cannot print from that lockdown browser. They can't do screenshots of the test or anything like that. They can't copy or paste anything into it. Anything like on the right-click menu, the function keys, all those keyboard things that they learn how to do to get around things, those are all disabled. And the assessment cannot be exited unless the student submits it for grading. So if they do need to leave, they can't come back and they can't leave, look up the answer and come back. They actually have to submit it for grading, and then it's up to you if you want to give them the ability to re-edit their answers or anything like that. And then assessments that are set up for use with Lockdown Browser can't be accessed with other browsers. So if you set it up to do Lockdown Browser, students have to use Lockdown Browser. So it is a really secure testing environment, and it is definitely what I recommend using if you're going to be doing assessments in Schoology. So this is a little bit of an example here of what it looks like for the student. And this is it. This is all they see here. So you can see they don't have their start menu down at the bottom. They don't have that system tray or dock down at the bottom to open up other apps. they can't edit this web address, so they can't go to like YouTube or, Google. They're just locked into the website that the test is on. There's no menu bar. They can't go back. They can refresh. They do have a couple tools up here you can give them access to, but for the most part, it is really locked down. And then they do have an exit here, but that is going to let them know that they're submitting that for grading. So they're not going to want to do that until they're complete with the test. So it's pretty easy to set up Lockdown Browser. I do have a video that I'm going to show you guys here in just a moment. But basically what you're going to do is the first thing you want to do is create the test in Schoology. So here we see LMS, but that means Schoology. You're going to go into Schoology, set up your test, and use whatever question type you want. So if you want to do short answer questions, essay questions, multiple choice, this isn't a how to set up a test in Schoology webinar, but certainly we have some resources on that if you guys need them. But once you have that test set up, then there is a Lockdown Browser tool on the side. You'll go in, find the test that you want to set up lockdown for, and edit those settings. And then you'll say, let's require Lockdown Browser, and you'll have a couple additional settings you can customize. You hit save and close, and just like that, you're good to go. So that's all well and good for me to talk about it, right? But let's see a video on that, because I do have a video for you guys, and I am going to leave it in this slide deck for you. I have a couple other resources linked here as well, including the Lockdown Browser playlist. So that has a bunch of different how-to videos. And then I have a link to this specific video on teacher setup. So let's take a look. My audio is shared, so we should be good. So let's see how teachers can set up Lockdown. Hi, in this video, we're going to learn how to enable Lockdown Browser in our Schoology courses. Lockdown Browser is a special test browser designed to lock students into the test so they can't look at outside resources while testing. So let's get started. I'm here in my Schoology course, and as a quick reminder, you do need to set up Lockdown Browser in each course for each assessment, but luckily it's just a few clicks, so it's not too bad. So here I am, I've got my test already configured and set up. So my next step is to go into Lockdown Browser. When I first go into Lockdown Browser, I'll see some information here and some different tutorials and things like that. If I don't want to see this page again, I can say don't show again. Otherwise, I can continue. All of the assessments I have set up in my course are going to load, and I'm going to be able to see whether or not Lockdown Browser is required and whether or not live proctoring is required. We have a separate video on live proctoring if you're interested in setting that up. For now, we're just going to learn how to set up the browser. So I'm going to find a quiz that I would like to require this Lockdown Browser on and click the down arrow next to it and go into settings. My first step is to click this radio button that says require Lockdown Browser. And then I do have some advanced settings I can configure. The first one here is I can lock the students into lockdown until the exam is completed, meaning they can't just quit out for whatever reason. However, I can set up a password to give to my students if they need to close out early in case they have some sort of emergency. I can also decide whether or not to allow students to take this exam on an iPad. Since we don't use iPads in the district, I'm going to go ahead and leave this off. And I can also choose to allow access to an external web domain. So an example of why I might want to do this is if I have a link to an article or a YouTube video I'd like my students to be able to watch, I can enable them to go to that domain. They won't be able to just open up a new tab and go to YouTube. I would have to specifically have a link in my test. In this case here, I do have a link to a YouTube video, so I'm going to check this box here. And I want to type out just the name of the domain. So it would just be youtube.com. I don't need to link the full video. The direct link in my test will take them there. I can also enable a calculator on the toolbar. This is separate from the Schoology calculator. So I'm already giving them a Schoology calculator. I'm not going to give them a separate calculator in Lockdown. And I can also decide whether or not I want to enable printing from the toolbar. In this case here, I want them to submit digitally, so I'm not going to enable printing. If I were to enable live proctoring, at that point I would continue on to these settings, but again, we have another video on that. So now I'm done. I can click save and close, and Lockdown Browser is now set up for my students for that test. Thank you for watching. Okay, as you can see, it's pretty simple to set it up. Just the important thing there is it is per test per class. I do see a question here for using Lockdown Browser for common assessments, and Anne might be able to back me up on this, but I believe if you set up the common assessment within Schoology, Lockdown Browser should still work with it. So it's the same setup as long as it's within Schoology. And Anne, if you know any differently, please let me know.
No, I believe you're correct. It's the same options.
Perfect. So that's another pro for why you might want to use common assessments within Schoology, is you can use Lockdown on those as well. Okay. Escape out of this here. We're not going to watch this video again. Also linked within this slide deck, excuse me, is this Lockdown Browser playlist. So this has all of our how-to videos on Lockdown Browser. I know during COVID times, the live proctoring was a really big piece. So you can certainly check out those if you want a live proctor test in Lockdown. And then you also have some examples here on how students join. But for the most part, you can just check out the teacher setup video and how students take a test on a district Chromebook laptop with Lockdown Browser. So pretty easy and straightforward, and it gets them right into it. All right, with that being said, I'm going to see if there's any other questions here. I do see a question here on how to use the test feature of Blocksy for performance matters assessments. That's a little bit longer to go into. So we do have a Blocksy webinar called Managing the Web with Blocksy. Go check that webinar out because that talks a lot more about assessment mode. There we go. Okay, 2 links now posted for you in that Q&A area. You should see them from me. So please fill out the first one for your attendance. Take a moment to fill out the second one to let us know what you thought of this PD, what you would like in other PDs. And then while I have you for a couple minutes more, I do want to reiterate that we do How Did They Do That Live every single month. And every single month it is a different topic, which means you can take it multiple times for credit. It is one of the only classes that you can do that, and it is because every single month it is a different topic. So CIPD approved it that every time you take it, you're getting an additional hour of credit. So if you need some ways to fill your hours for the next 4 months, we've got an October How They Do That, a November one, and we will have a December one. We always take a break in January, and then we will pick it back up in February. We are doing 8 this year. So if you attend all of them, that is 8 hours. That is 2/3 of the hours that you need. Or if you've already gotten your hours and you just want to learn more, you are always welcome to join them for regular credit too. All right, with that being said, I think we are at the end of the webinar here. Let me check and see if there's any final questions. All right, thank you everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar now, but I hope you all had a great afternoon and you have some tips for classroom management that you walked away with. Have a great day.